Autumn in Cedar Valley, Colorado always brought a special atmosphere to the small mountain town. Golden leaves danced in the crisp breeze, and the air carried the sweet scent of aspens that dominated the landscape. It was a time of year that Emma Williams adored, when she could wear her colorful sweaters and play among the dry leaves that covered the school courtyard like a natural carpet. Cedar Valley was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, where children still played in the streets without hurry, and where neighbors looked after each other like one big extended family. With just over 8,000 residents, the town maintained that small-town charm that made stories spread quickly, and every child become in some way the responsibility of the entire community. Cedar Valley Elementary School sat in the heart of town, surrounded by a low white picket fence and a garden carefully maintained by the principal, Mrs. Margaret Foster, who had dedicated over 30 years of her life to educating local children. The school playground was the institution's pride, a spacious area with colorful equipment, benches shaded by century-old oak trees, and a small sensory garden that the children themselves helped tend. It was in this idyllic setting that, on an afternoon in May 2018, the lives of many families would change forever. Emma Williams was 6 years old when she disappeared. She was small for her age, with curly brown hair that her mother, Sarah, insisted on styling in 2 braids adorned with colorful ribbons. Her large, expressive green eyes reflected an insatiable curiosity about the world around her, and she had the peculiar habit of tilting her head to one side when she was thinking deeply about something. Sarah Williams worked as a kindergarten teacher at the same school Emma attended, a coincidence that brought both joy and constant worry. On one hand, she could closely monitor her daughter's development and relationships with classmates. On the other hand, she felt a double responsibility, as both mother and educator, to ensure Emma had a normal and healthy school experience. Emma's father, Michael Williams, was a veterinarian who ran a small clinic in town, where he cared for both family pets and livestock from surrounding farms. Michael was known for his infinite patience with animals and his willingness to respond to emergencies at any hour of the day or night. The Williams family was respected and beloved in the community, known for their generosity and involvement in charitable activities. Emma had an inseparable companion, a light brown teddy bear named Honey. The bear had been a gift from her paternal grandmother, Grandma Rose, when Emma was born, and since then had never left her side. Honey accompanied Emma everywhere, to school, discreetly in her backpack, to visits with grandparents on family trips, and always slept cuddled with her every night. The teddy bear showed signs of much love. Its fur was somewhat faded in places, especially where Emma liked to pet it most, and one of its ears was slightly more squished than the other, due to Emma's habit of fidgeting with it when she was nervous or thoughtful. Sarah had offered several times to mend or even buy a new teddy bear, but Emma always refused vehemently, insisting that Honey was perfect, exactly as it was. On the morning of May 15, 2018, Emma woke up more excited than usual. It was Tuesday, and Tuesdays were special at school because it was art class day with Mrs. Amanda, who always prepared creative projects that left the children enthusiastic. Emma had spent the previous evening thinking about what colors to use in her family drawing, and could barely contain her excitement to get to school. The drawing was particularly special because Emma had been meticulous with details with the typical dedication of a 6-year-old. She had used 12 different colors to represent each family member, giving each unique characteristics that reflected their personality. Daddy Michael appeared with a stethoscope drawn around his neck and a big smile, surrounded by small drawings of dogs and cats. Mommy Sarah was represented with a book in her hands and several hearts floating around her, symbolizing the love she put into her work as a teacher. Grandma Rose appeared in the drawing wearing her favorite apron, the one with flower prints that she always wore when making cookies, and was surrounded by small pink hearts that Emma had drawn to represent all the sweetness her grandmother brought to their lives. Emma had drawn herself in the center of everyone, wearing her favorite butterfly blouse and firmly holding Honey's hand, who appeared almost the same size as her in the drawing, demonstrating the importance the teddy bear had in her life. What made the drawing even more special was a small house in the background with a large tree, obviously inspired by the oak tree in the school playground, and a bright yellow sun with rays extending to touch each family member, as if love and happiness were a light connecting them all. Sarah clearly remembered the details of that morning. Emma had chosen to wear her favorite shirt, a pink t-shirt with colorful butterfly designs, and a denim skirt that spun when she twirled. She insisted on putting on her light-up sneakers that flashed when she walked, a novelty that still fascinated her even after 3 months of use. During breakfast, Emma chatted animatedly about her plans for the day. She wanted to play with her best friend Sophie during recess, and was eager to show Mrs. Amanda the drawing she had made at home over the weekend. It was a family portrait including Honey, whom Emma always considered an official member of the Williams family. As usual, Emma hugged Honey before carefully storing him in her backpack. She always made sure the teddy bear was comfortable, arranging him so his head stuck out of the main zipper. "So he can breathe," as she seriously explained to anyone who asked. The school operated with a well-established routine that reassured both children and parents. The gate opened at 7 in the morning, and children were greeted by staff members who knew each one by name. Recess happened from 9:30 to 10 in the morning, a period when children were free to play on the playground under constant supervision from teachers and aides. That Tuesday, everything went normally during the morning. Emma actively participated in math class, where they were learning about geometric shapes, and showed her drawing to Mrs. Amanda, who especially praised the vibrant colors Emma had chosen to represent each family member. When recess time arrived, Emma took Honey from her backpack, as she always did, and ran out to find Sophie on the playground. The two girls were inseparable and had developed a series of elaborate games involving their favorite dolls and stuffed animals. That day they had planned to have an imaginary picnic under the large oak tree in the quietest corner of the courtyard. The teacher responsible for recess supervision that morning was Mrs. Carmen, an experienced educator who knew every child in school and their peculiarities. She clearly remembered seeing Emma and Sophie playing happily near the tree, with their toys spread out on a small blanket Sophie had brought from home for the game. Around 9:45, Mrs. Carmen was called to mediate a small argument between two older boys who were fighting over a toy. The situation took no more than 5 minutes to resolve, but when she returned her attention to the tree area, Emma was no longer there. Sophie was sitting alone on the blanket, playing calmly with her doll, apparently undisturbed by her friend's absence. When Mrs. Carmen asked where Emma was, Sophie responded with the naturalness typical of a 6-year-old. She went to use the bathroom and said she'd be right back. Initially, Mrs. Carmen wasn't worried. It was normal for children to use the bathroom during recess, and Emma was a responsible girl who always let someone know when she needed to leave the courtyard. But when 10 minutes passed and Emma didn't return, concern began to take hold of the supervisor. Mrs. Carmen went to the bathroom nearest the playground to check if Emma was okay. The bathroom was empty. She then checked the other school bathrooms, asked other teachers if anyone had seen Emma, and began a systematic search throughout the school. Mrs. Carmen's heart beat faster and faster as she walked through hallways, classrooms, library, cafeteria, and even the principal's office. Emma simply wasn't anywhere in the school. At 10:15 in the morning, exactly 45 minutes after Emma had gone out to play on the playground, Principal Mrs. Margaret Foster activated the school's emergency protocol. All exits were immediately blocked. All staff were mobilized for a complete search of the building, and police were called. Sarah was teaching her kindergarten class when she was urgently called to the principal's office. The despair she saw in Mrs. Foster's eyes was enough for her world to collapse before even hearing the words that would confirm her worst nightmare. "Sarah, we need to talk about Emma," Mrs. Foster said with a trembling voice. She's not in school. We've looked everywhere, but she's disappeared." What followed was a blur of frantic activity, growing desperation, and an entire community mobilizing to find a 6-year-old girl who had simply vanished into thin air. Michael was immediately called from the veterinary clinic and arrived at school in record time, finding his wife in shock and dozens of people searching for his daughter. The police arrived 15 minutes after the first call. The detective in charge, Detective Robert Martinez, was a father of 2 daughters and immediately understood the gravity of the situation. He implemented a search protocol that included not only the school but the entire surrounding area, including nearby streets, commercial establishments, and neighboring residences. During the initial search at the school, a discovery was made that further increased the mystery. Honey, Emma's inseparable teddy bear, was found abandoned under the oak tree where she had been playing with Sophie. The teddy bear was positioned carefully against the tree trunk, as if it had been placed there intentionally, not dropped or forgotten accidentally. This discovery was particularly disturbing for Sarah and Michael, who knew Emma would never voluntarily separate from Honey. The girl took the teddy bear everywhere and became visibly distressed on the rare occasions when she was separated from him, even for just a few minutes. Sophie, Emma's best friend and the last person to see her, was carefully interviewed by a child psychologist specializing in disappearance cases. The girl consistently maintained her version of events. Emma had said she needed to use the bathroom and would be back soon to continue playing. Sophie hadn't seen Emma leave the playground area, nor had she noticed anything unusual or suspicious. What most puzzled investigators was that Sophie couldn't explain when or how Honey had ended up under the tree. She clearly remembered Emma holding the teddy bear when she said she was going to the bathroom, but didn't recall seeing him after that. The search for Emma mobilized the entire Cedar Valley community in a way no one had witnessed before. Hundreds of volunteers joined the official search efforts, systematically covering every street, every trail in the surrounding mountains, every commercial establishment, and every rural property in the region. What most impressed outside observers was the spontaneous organization that emerged from the community. Mrs. Mercedes, owner of the town's central bakery, transformed her establishment into an unofficial command center, providing free coffee and sandwiches to all volunteers, and serving as a coordination point for search groups. Her husband, John, used his detailed knowledge of the region's trails to guide search teams through the most remote mountain areas. Main Street merchants closed their stores early to join the searches, and many offered their vehicles to transport volunteers to distant areas. The local auto repair shop worked through the night to keep volunteers' cars running, refusing to accept any payment for services provided during the crisis. Entire families participated in the search efforts, with older children distributing water and snacks to adults walking the trails, and teenagers using their bicycles to carry messages between different search groups in the days before cell phones were universal in the region. The local church established a shift system so there would always be someone praying for Emma's safety, and the church bell rang every hour as a reminder that the community hadn't forgotten the missing girl. The ladies of the congregation organized a community kitchen that operated 24 hours a day to feed volunteers, transforming the parish hall into a dining room that never closed. Search dogs were brought from Denver to help with the search. The animals were able to track Emma's scent from the playground to the school's main gate, but from there the trail was completely lost, as if she had simply disappeared. The work with the dogs revealed an intriguing detail that initially went unnoticed. Emma's trail didn't follow the direct path from the playground to the main gate, but made a detour through the school's administrative area, suggesting she had passed through that region before reaching the gate. This detail led investigators to question more thoroughly the people who were in the administrative area that day, including staff, suppliers, and occasional visitors. Dr. Fernando Costa, a canine behavior specialist who accompanied the search dogs, explained to the family and authorities that the sudden loss of the trail was unusual and could indicate that Emma had entered a vehicle at the school gate. This possibility intensified the search for witnesses who might have seen suspicious vehicles in the area during the critical time. As the days turned into weeks without any clue about Emma's whereabouts, the investigation expanded its scope. Background checks were conducted on all school staff and people who had regular access to the building. The possibility of involvement by family members or acquaintances was investigated. The Williams family's finances and personal relationships were analyzed for any motive that could explain the disappearance. Nothing was found. The Williams family was exactly what they appeared to be, a loving, stable family, without secrets or problems that could have resulted in their daughter's disappearance. Media coverage brought national attention to the case. Reports about Emma's disappearance were shown on major television programs, and her photo was widely shared on social media. Dozens of supposed leads reached authorities, but all proved false or irrelevant when properly investigated. The Cedar Valley community rallied around the Williams family in an extraordinary way. Neighbors organized shifts to bring meals, friends took care of household tasks that Sarah and Michael could no longer handle, and an informal support group was formed to help the couple deal with trauma and uncertainty. The town's Main Street church organized weekly vigils for Emma's return, which became moments of community unity and collective hope. These vigils continued even when weeks turned into months, demonstrating the lasting love the community felt for the missing girl and her family. Grandma Rose, Emma's grandmother who had given the teddy bear Honey to her granddaughter when she was born, was deeply affected by the disappearance. She began caring for the teddy bear as if it were a sacred link to Emma, washing it carefully and always keeping it clean and well-maintained in hopes that one day she could return it to her beloved granddaughter's hands. The school implemented new security protocols after Emma's disappearance. Security cameras were installed, new supervision procedures were established, and a more rigorous identification system was implemented to control building access. Although these measures were necessary, they also served as constant reminders of the tragedy that had struck the school community. Mrs. Amanda, who had taught art to Emma on the morning of her disappearance, carefully saved the drawing the girl had made of the family. She kept the drawing in a special folder, along with Emma's other work, hoping to be able to return them when the girl came back. Sophie, Emma's best friend, had difficulty processing her friend's disappearance. She kept asking when Emma would return to finish their picnic game, and her parents had to seek psychological help to help her understand the situation. The psychologist recommended that Sophie maintain a normal routine, but also encouraged her to express her feelings through drawings and symbolic play. As the first year after Emma's disappearance came to an end, the community organized a ceremony in her memory. It wasn't exactly a funeral, as everyone maintained hope that she was still alive, but rather a celebration of her life and a moment for the community to unite in prayer and mutual support. During this ceremony, held at the school playground where Emma had last been seen, hundreds of people shared memories of the cheerful girl who had touched so many lives in her 6 short years. Teachers spoke about her insatiable curiosity and natural kindness. Classmates drew pictures of her and their favorite moments together. Neighbors remembered her contagious laughter and how she always greeted everyone with a radiant smile. Sarah and Michael, though devastated by grief, found strength in the community's demonstration of love. They established a foundation in Emma's name dedicated to child safety and disappearance prevention, channeling their pain into positive action that could help other families. Over the years that followed, life in Cedar Valley gradually returned to a new normal, though Emma's absence was always felt. Her photo remained prominently displayed on the school bulletin board, and her place in the classroom was kept empty as a symbol of hope for her return. Sarah continued teaching at the same school, finding purpose in caring for other families' children and honoring Emma's memory through her dedicated work. Michael maintained his veterinary clinic but also became actively involved in organizations supporting families of missing children, offering emotional support based on his own painful experience. The official investigation remained open, but as years passed, fewer resources were dedicated to the case. New leads occasionally emerged, supposed sightings in other cities, phone calls from people who believed they had relevant information, but all proved false or inconclusive. Grandma Rose continued caring for Honey with religious devotion, developing a daily routine that included brushing his fur, checking that his button eyes were properly attached, and talking to him as if he were Emma herself. While some family members worried about this behavior, psychologists following the family explained this was a healthy way for Grandma Rose to process her loss and maintain an emotional connection with her granddaughter. The 5th anniversary of Emma's disappearance approached with a mixture of melancholy and renewed determination. The family decided it was time to do something special to mark this significant date. Sarah suggested that perhaps it was time to donate some of Emma's belongings to other children in need, keeping only the most special items as mementos. It was during this emotional preparation that the family decided to more carefully examine Emma's belongings that had been preserved exactly as she had left them. Among these belongings, naturally, was Honey, who had been the center of so much attention and care over the years. Grandma Rose, who had taken responsibility for caring for the teddy bear, noticed that over the 5 years, even with all her meticulous care, Honey was beginning to show signs of wear. A small seam on his belly had come loose slightly, and she decided it was time to make a small repair to keep the teddy bear in perfect condition. It was a decision that would change everything. On the afternoon of May 15, 2023, exactly 5 years after Emma's disappearance, Grandma Rose sat in her favorite armchair with a small sewing kit and carefully began repairing the loose seam on Honey's belly. She had made similar repairs several times over the years and expected this to be another small routine adjustment, but when she carefully opened the small opening in the seam to reinforce the internal stitches, her fingers touched something that definitely wasn't teddy bear stuffing. There was something hidden inside Honey. With trembling hands and racing heart, Grandma Rose carefully removed the strange object from inside the teddy bear. It was a small electronic device about the size of a coin, wrapped in several layers of protective plastic. Along with the device, there was a small piece of paper folded multiple times to fit in the limited space. Grandma Rose immediately called Sarah and Michael, who arrived at her house within minutes. Together, they carefully opened the paper, revealing a message written in careful print, but clearly hurried. Emma is safe and loved. She was not taken against her will. Please don't search. She will return when it's safe. Take care of Honey until then. Someone who loves Emma. The electronic device proved to be a small digital recorder, the type used for making quick voice notes. With hands shaking so much they could barely operate the device, they pressed the play button. The voice that emerged from the small speaker made the world stop for the Williams family. It was Emma. "Hi, Mommy. Hi, Daddy. Hi, Grandma Rose," said the familiar voice, though somewhat more mature than they remembered. "I'm okay. I'm happy. I miss you all every day, but I had to go away to keep myself safe. Someone very bad was trying to hurt me, and good people helped me stay away from him." The recording continued, with Emma explaining that she was living with a very kind family who took good care of her, that she was going to school and making new friends, but that she couldn't come home yet because the bad person was still looking for her. "I know you must be very sad and worried," continued Emma's voice, now 9 years old, "but I promise I'm safe. The family taking care of me told me that when the bad man is arrested or goes far away for good, I can come home. They promised." Emma then began sharing some details about her new life that revealed the extraordinary care she had received. "I have my own room with a window that looks out to the ocean. I had never seen the real ocean before, only in pictures, but now I wake up every day hearing the waves. The family here has a girl my age named Marina, and she became like a sister to me. We play together every day and she taught me how to make really big sandcastles." Emma's voice gained animation as she described her new experiences. "I learned to swim in the ocean, Mommy. Remember how you always said we'd go to the beach on vacation? Well, now I know how to really swim, and I even learned to dive a little bit. Marina's dad, they told me to call him Uncle Pete, is a fisherman, and sometimes he takes me on his boat. He said when I come home I'll be able to teach Daddy Michael all about ocean fish." There was a pause in the recording, and when Emma continued, her voice was softer, more reflective. "I know it might seem like I forgot about you because I'm happy here, but that's not true. I think about you every day. I made a calendar where I mark how many days have passed since we saw each other, and every night before I sleep, I count stars and dedicate one to each of you." Emma then revealed something that made the family's heart squeeze with emotion and pride. "I'm also helping other children here. Aunt Clara, she's like a special teacher, told me that because I'm brave and know what it's like to be away from family, I can help younger children who arrive here scared. I tell them stories and lend them my toys, and mainly I explain that being here is temporary and that one day they'll go back to their families, just like I'll go back to you." The recording included details that only Emma could know, specific family memories, games she and Sophie used to play, and even a reference to the family drawing she had shown Mrs. Amanda on the day of her disappearance. "I think about you all every day," Emma continued. "I imagine Mommy teaching the children at school, and Daddy taking care of the sick animals, and Grandma Rose making those delicious cookies. I keep Honey with me whenever I can, but I had to leave him with you so you could keep this message for me." The recording ended with Emma singing a lullaby that Grandma Rose used to sing to her, a traditional song that had been passed down through generations in the Williams family. Hearing her granddaughter singing that familiar song, even through a small electronic device, made Grandma Rose cry tears of both relief and longing. The discovery of Emma's message created a complex mixture of emotions for the family. On one hand, there was immense relief in knowing she was alive, safe, and apparently well cared for. On the other hand, there were new concerns and questions about who had taken Emma, why she had been taken, and when, or if, she would be able to come home. The family immediately took the recording and note to authorities. Detective Martinez, who had led the original investigation, had already retired, but his successor, Detective Maria Santos, immediately reopened the case with renewed vigor. Technical analysis of the recording confirmed that the voice was indeed Emma's, now 3 years older than when she had disappeared. Audio specialists determined the recording had been made recently, probably within the last 6 months, and that there were no signs of coercion or distress in the girl's voice. Emma's message raised disturbing questions about what had really happened on the day of her disappearance. If she had been taken for her own protection, as the message suggested, it implied there had been a real threat against her that neither her family nor authorities had identified. The investigation was restarted with focus on identifying who could have posed a threat to Emma 5 years earlier. Investigators reviewed all criminal cases involving crimes against children in the region during the years before Emma's disappearance, looking for patterns or suspects who might have been specifically interested in her. A disturbing discovery emerged from this new investigation. Jeremy Santos, a 42-year-old man who had worked occasionally as a substitute janitor at Emma's school, had been arrested 2 years after the girl's disappearance for serious crimes against minors in a neighboring city. No one had connected his presence at the school with Emma's disappearance because he had been careful to maintain a low profile and had left the region shortly after Emma disappeared. The investigation revealed that Jeremy had shown inappropriate interest in several school children, including Emma, but had been discreet enough not to arouse obvious suspicions at the time. Several school staff members, when interviewed again, remembered small incidents that at the time seemed innocent but in retrospect seemed disturbing. Mrs. Carmen, the recess supervisor, remembered seeing Jeremy watching the children play on the playground on several occasions, always with a plausible excuse for being in the area. Principal Mrs. Foster recalled that Jeremy had asked specifically about children's activity schedules and seemed to know details about individual routines of certain children, including Emma. The discovery that there had really been a credible threat against Emma validated the message found in the teddy bear and provided context for why someone might have felt the need to remove her from the dangerous situation. But the fundamental question remained: who had protected Emma and where was she now? Forensic analysis of the note found with the recording revealed important clues. The paper was of a specific type used in certain educational institutions, and the ink matched pens distributed by a charity organization that worked with at-risk families. Following these clues, investigators identified the Guardian Angel Network, a clandestine organization that operated discreetly to protect children in extreme danger. The organization was composed mainly of social workers, psychologists, and other professionals who occasionally took extra-legal measures to remove children from situations where official channels were inadequate or too slow to ensure their safety. The Guardian Angel Network operated a network of safe homes, carefully selected and trained families who could temporarily care for at-risk children while threats against them were resolved. Children under the network's protection received temporary identities, continued their education in safe schools, and were cared for as if they were members of the families that sheltered them. Although their intentions were noble, the Guardian Angel Network's methods were clearly illegal, essentially involving child abduction, even if to protect them. The organization justified its actions by pointing to cases where children had been injured or killed, while awaiting official intervention through appropriate legal channels. The discovery of the Guardian Angel Network created a complex ethical dilemma for authorities. On one hand, the organization had clearly violated the law by removing Emma from her family without legal authorization. On the other hand, they had apparently saved the life of a 6-year-old girl, protecting her from a predator who was subsequently convicted of serious crimes against other children. Detective Maria Santos worked discreetly with prosecutors and judges to develop an approach that prioritized Emma's safe return to her family over legal prosecution of Guardian Angel Network members. Careful communications were established through intermediaries to assure the organization that their priority was reuniting Emma with her family, not punishing them for their actions. These negotiations took several weeks, during which the Williams family lived on an emotional roller coaster of hope and anxiety. Knowing Emma was alive and safe brought immense relief, but uncertainty about when she could come home was a constant source of stress. During this waiting period, the family listened to Emma's recording hundreds of times, analyzing every word, every voice inflection, looking for clues about her emotional and physical well-being. They were comforted to hear that her voice sounded happy and healthy, without obvious signs of trauma or distress. Sarah began recording her own messages for Emma, hoping intermediaries could deliver them. She talked about how she had continued teaching at school, about new students she had met, and how she thought about Emma every day. Michael recorded messages about animals he had treated and adventures they would have together when she came home. Grandma Rose, whose meticulous care of Honey had led to discovering the message, began embroidering a special quilt for Emma, incorporating symbols and memories from her childhood. She worked on the quilt every day, finding purpose and hope in the project that symbolized her faith in her granddaughter's return. The Cedar Valley community responded to news that Emma was alive with a mixture of joy, relief, and bewilderment. Many people were confused about how to process the information that the girl they had searched for 5 years had been protected by people who, though well-intentioned, had essentially kidnapped her. Main Street Church organized a special Thanksgiving ceremony for the discovery that Emma was safe. The local pastor, Father Miguel, used the situation as an opportunity to speak about the moral complexity of situations where good and evil aren't clearly defined, and about the importance of forgiveness and understanding even in difficult circumstances. The school prepared for Emma's possible return, though no one knew exactly when that would happen. Mrs. Amanda saved all the art projects Emma's class had made over the years, and Sophie, now 11 years old, wrote letters to her former best friend explaining how she had grown and changed in the years since they were separated. Finally, in August 2023, 3 months after discovering the message in Honey, authorities received communication that Emma was ready to come home. Jeremy Santos had been transferred to a federal prison where he would serve a long sentence, eliminating the threat that had originally necessitated her protection. Emma's return was carefully orchestrated to ensure her privacy and emotional well-being. She was brought home by Guardian Angel Network members who had cared for her during the 5 years of separation, accompanied by psychologists specializing in family reunification. The meeting between Emma and her family took place at Grandma Rose's house, away from the curious eyes of media and community. When the door opened and an 11-year-old girl entered the room, there was a moment of mutual recognition followed by tears, hugs, and a mixture of joy and disbelief. Emma had grown, obviously, but her essential characteristics remained the same. Her green eyes still sparkled with curiosity. She still tilted her head when thinking, and she still had that radiant smile that had illuminated so many lives before her disappearance. Emma's first request upon seeing her family was for her Honey. When Grandma Rose placed the familiar teddy bear in her arms, Emma hugged him tightly and whispered, "I knew you would take care of him for me." The transition back to life in Cedar Valley wasn't simple for Emma. She had spent 5 crucial developmental years in a completely different environment, with a different family, in a different city. Although she had been well cared for and loved, she had to readjust to her original family and community that had changed in her absence. The first months were especially challenging. Emma had become accustomed to the constant sound of ocean waves, and the silence of the Colorado mountains initially made her restless during the night. Sarah and Michael installed a small sound machine in Emma's room that played ocean sounds, helping her feel more comfortable during the adaptation process. Emma also needed to adjust to significant practical differences. In the family that had protected her, she had developed the habit of helping with household chores more independently than was typical for a child of her original age. She knew how to cook simple meals, wash her own clothes, and care for younger children. These skills, though impressive, sometimes made her feel displaced in her own family, where responsibilities and expectations were different. Dr. Patricia Mendez, the psychologist specializing in family reunification who accompanied Emma, explained that it was normal for children who had experienced prolonged separation to develop a premature sense of independence as an adaptation mechanism. She worked with the family to find ways to honor Emma's new skills, while allowing her to also experience some aspects of childhood she had missed. One of the most touching adaptations was food-related. Emma had become accustomed to seafood dishes, especially fresh fish that the fishing family prepared daily. Grandma Rose learned new recipes to incorporate ocean fish into the family diet, creating a culinary bridge between Emma's 2 lives. During therapy sessions, Emma created what the psychologist called a dual memory book, a special album where she pasted photos and drawings from both families, creating a visual narrative that connected her 2 life experiences. On one page, she pasted photos of her first swimming attempts in the ocean. On the next page, drawings of memories of playing on the school playground in Cedar Valley. A particularly interesting discovery was that Emma had developed a slightly different accent during her years in the coastal city. Certain words she pronounced with the characteristic intonation of the region where she had lived, creating a unique linguistic mixture that served as an audible reminder of her extraordinary journey. School adaptation also presented unique challenges. Emma had studied at a school with different methodology, and in some subjects was ahead of peers her age in Cedar Valley, while in others there were gaps that needed to be filled. Her teachers worked individually with her to create a personalized educational plan that respected her unique learning pace. More impressive still was the emotional maturity Emma had developed. She demonstrated sophisticated understanding of concepts like family, protection, and sacrifice that surprised the adults around her. During a conversation with her former teacher, Amanda, Emma explained, "I learned that sometimes people do things that seem bad but are actually to protect us. And I learned that a person can love 2 families at the same time without diminishing love for either." The adaptation process also revealed Emma's remarkable resilience. Despite having experienced something that could have been deeply traumatic, she showed no obvious signs of long-term psychological damage. Instead, she seemed to have developed an unusual capacity for empathy and understanding of complex family situations. The family that had protected Emma maintained contact, with approval from authorities and the Williams family. They had become a second family to Emma, and completely cutting these ties would have been traumatic for her. Instead, a unique situation was created where Emma essentially had two families who loved and cared for her. The Cedar Valley community welcomed Emma back with love, but also with sensitivity to her needs for privacy and adaptation. Many people wanted to see and greet her, but understood she needed time and space to gradually readjust to life in her hometown. Sophie, her former best friend, was nervous about reconnecting with Emma. 5 years is a long time in a child's life, and both had changed significantly. But when they met again at the school playground where they had played for the last time, they discovered their fundamental friendship remained intact, though certainly evolved. Emma returned to school gradually, starting with half-days and increasing her time as she felt more comfortable. Her teachers were prepared to support her academically and emotionally, understanding she had missed 5 years of education at her original school, though she had continued learning elsewhere. Emma's story brought national attention to complex issues related to child protection, the limits of legal versus illegal intervention, and failures in official systems that sometimes leave children vulnerable in dangerous situations. Her story was studied by social workers, law enforcement, and legislators interested in improving child protection protocols. The case generated heated debates in academic and professional forums. Dr. Ana Beatriz Santos, one of the country's leading experts in child protection, used Emma's story as an example in her lectures on the need for child protection system reforms. Emma's case forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality, she explained in her presentations. There exists a legal limbo where children can be in real danger, but official mechanisms are too slow or inadequate to protect them properly. Universities across the country began incorporating Emma's case into their social work, family law, and child psychology curricula. Students analyzed the ethical, legal, and psychological aspects of the situation, debating questions like, when is it justifiable to break the law to protect a child? How do we balance parental rights with child safety? What is the community's responsibility in child protection? The local Catholic Church, through Father Miguel, organized a series of seminars on moral ethics in complex situations. Emma's story teaches us that there isn't always a clear answer about what's right or wrong, he preached during Sunday Masses. Sometimes we're called to choose between different forms of love that follows rules, and love that protects life, and sometimes these forms of love conflict. The Guardian Angel Network, though still operating outside the law, received some public sympathy due to the positive outcome in Emma's case. National debates emerged about whether organizations like this should be prosecuted, or whether there should be legal changes to allow faster interventions in cases where children are in immediate danger. Dr. Ricardo Almeida, a lawyer specializing in children's rights, proposed to Congress a series of reforms that became known as the Emma Protocol. These reforms aimed to create legal mechanisms for emergency interventions in cases of immediate threats to children, establishing procedures that would allow rapid protection without completely violating family rights. The Emma Protocol included provisions for emergency courts that could authorize temporary protection of children in extreme risk within 24 hours, witness protection programs specifically adapted for children, networks of pre-approved volunteer families to temporarily shelter at-risk children, communication systems that would allow children in protection to maintain limited but safe contact with their families of origin. The proposal generated intense discussions in Congress and civil society, with advocates arguing such measures could have prevented the Williams family's suffering, while critics warned about the potential for abuse of such emergency powers. Cedar Valley became a pilgrimage destination for families who had experienced similar disappearances of children. The school playground where Emma had played for the last time transformed into a place of hope and reflection, where parents of missing children came to seek strength and inspiration. The City Hall established the Garden of Hope adjacent to the school playground, a memorial space dedicated to all missing children. Each tree planted in the garden represented a missing child, and small plaques contained only names and dates, serving as silent reminders that each lost child was a precious life that mattered to someone. The garden included a special space called the Reunion Circle, where families could gather to share stories, offer mutual support, and participate in hope ceremonies. A sculpture in the center of the circle depicted open hands extended to the sky, symbolizing both a plea for protection and willingness to receive back those who were lost. Marina Santos, the girl who had become like a sister to Emma during her years of protection, visited Cedar Valley with her family 6 months after Emma's return. The meeting between the two families was carefully organized by psychologists, resulting in a deep emotional connection that surprised everyone involved. "You didn't lose a daughter," Aunt Clara, the Guardian Angel Network coordinator, told the Williams family during this visit. "You gained an extended family. Emma grew up surrounded by love, and that love created bonds that will last forever." The family that had protected Emma established a scholarship fund in her name, dedicated to supporting education for children who had been victims of risk situations. They also began working officially with authorities to develop legal protocols for similar situations in the future, using their experience to help create more effective child protection systems. Emma's story brought national attention to complex issues related to child protection, the limits of legal versus illegal intervention, and failures in official systems that sometimes leave children vulnerable in dangerous situations. Her story was studied by social workers, law enforcement, and legislators interested in improving child protection protocols. For the Williams family, Emma's return was the fulfillment of a dream they had kept alive during 5 long and painful years. But they also recognized their daughter had returned as a different person, older, more experienced, and in some ways, more independent than she would have been if she had never gone through this experience. Emma brought with her stories of her life during the 5 years of protection. She had lived in a coastal city, learned to swim in the ocean, made friends who became like siblings to her, and developed interests and talents she wouldn't have discovered otherwise. While she was happy to be back with her original family, she also carried longing for the life she had left behind. The experience taught the Williams family and Cedar Valley community about children's resilience, the complexity of child protection situations, and the importance of maintaining hope even in the most difficult circumstances. They learned that not all missing children's stories end in tragedy, and that sometimes the most complicated situations can have solutions no one could have imagined. Honey, the teddy bear that had kept the secret leading to Emma's return, was carefully repaired and returned to his place of honor as Emma's constant companion. But now he carried an additional story, the story of how a family's love and care can create connections that transcend time and distance. The seam that Grandma Rose had opened to discover the message was repaired with golden thread, creating a small mark that would always remind the family of the day they discovered their beloved Emma was alive and safe. For Emma, this golden mark on her favorite teddy bear symbolized the unbreakable connection between her and her family, a connection that had remained strong even through 5 years of separation. 1 year after her return, Emma had adapted well to life back in Cedar Valley, though she maintained regular contact with the family that had cared for her during her protection. She developed a unique perspective on family, understanding that love can take many forms and that it's possible to belong to more than one place at the same time. Emma decided to share her story through a children's book about a teddy bear that keeps important secrets. The book's profits were donated to organizations working to protect children at risk, transforming her difficult experience into a source of help for other children who might be facing similar situations. Emma's and Honey's story became a modern legend in Cedar Valley, a story families told their children about the importance of hope, unconditional love, and never giving up on the people we love. The school playground where Emma had disappeared was renovated and received a plaque dedicated to all missing children, with a message of hope and a commitment that the community would never forget any lost child. Emma's case also led to practical changes in school security and child protection protocols throughout the region. New laws were passed to facilitate rapid interventions when children are in danger, and new support systems were established for families facing threats against their children. For Sarah and Michael, the experience transformed their perspective on parenthood, community, and the complex nature of good and evil. They became passionate advocates for better child protection systems and counselors for other families facing the trauma of missing children. Grandma Rose continued caring for Honey whenever Emma didn't need him, maintaining her tradition of lovingly tending to the teddy bear. She often said that Honey had proven to be much more than a simple toy. He had been a guardian of hope, a bearer of messages of love, and a symbol of the unbreakable connection between a family separated by the most extraordinary circumstances. Emma's story taught everyone that sometimes the most important secrets are kept in the most unexpected places, that true love finds ways to communicate even across the greatest distances, and that hope, kept alive through years of uncertainty, can be rewarded in ways that exceed our imagination. 3 years after her return, Emma developed a special tradition that became legendary in Cedar Valley. Each anniversary of her return, she visited the school playground with Honey and spent a few minutes sitting under the oak tree where she had played for the last time before her disappearance. During these moments of reflection, she silently conversed with the tree, sharing her memories, her growth, and her dreams for the future. These annual visits became informal community celebration moments. Although Emma never asked for company during these personal moments, the community developed the habit of gathering discreetly nearby, offering their silent presence as a form of support and celebration. Children brought their own favorite toys to introduce to Honey, creating a tradition that connected younger generations with the hope story Emma represented. The current school principal, who had assumed the position after Mrs. Foster's retirement, instituted Special Toy Day on the date of Emma's return. On this day, all school children were encouraged to bring their most cherished toys and tell stories about why they were special. The activity became a celebration of the importance of transitional objects in children's lives and a way to honor the special bond between Emma and Honey. During these annual celebrations, Emma frequently shared reflections that demonstrated her precocious wisdom and unique perspective on family, belonging, and love. On one memorable occasion when she was 13 years old, she told a group of younger children, "You know, I used to think a family was just the people who live in the same house as you. But now I know family is made of people who carry you in their hearts, no matter where they are." Honey, now over 14 years old and showing considerable signs of his long service as a secret keeper and loyal companion, had become something of a local celebrity. Children in the region frequently asked to touch the famous teddy bear, and Emma always allowed it, explaining that Honey has enough love to share with everyone. The teddy bear had undergone several repairs over the years, but Grandma Rose always took special care to preserve his essential characteristics. The golden seam that marked where the secret message had been discovered had become one of the teddy bear's most beloved features, a golden symbol of the connection that had reunited a separated family. Emma's story inspired countless other families to create their own communication and connection traditions. Many parents began hiding small love messages in their children's favorite toys, not out of necessity, but as a way to create special memories and demonstrate that love can be found in the most unexpected places. A school in Denver created an educational project based on Emma's story, where children wrote letters to their future selves and kept them in time capsules made from waterproof containers. The project taught children about the importance of communication, hope, and trust, that love always finds a way to express itself. Dr. Patricia Mendez, the psychologist who had accompanied Emma's reintegration, used the experience to develop new family reunification protocols that were adopted by institutes across the country. Her work emphasized the importance of honoring all of a child's experiences, including those lived during periods of family separation, rather than trying to erase or minimize these memories. Emma taught us that healing doesn't come from forgetting, Dr. Patricia frequently explained in her professional conferences. Healing comes from integrating all our experiences into a coherent narrative of who we are. Emma didn't have to choose between her two families or deny the validity of either of her experiences. Instead, she found a way to honor both and create a rich, multifaceted identity. Emma's story brought national attention to complex issues related to child protection, the limits of legal versus illegal intervention, and failures in official systems that sometimes leave children vulnerable in dangerous situations. Her story was studied by social workers, law enforcement, and legislators interested in improving child protection protocols. Today, when visitors arrive in Cedar Valley and hear the story of Emma and Honey, they frequently comment on how the town seems imbued with a special quality of hope and community. There's something in the way neighbors greet each other, in the extra attention adults pay to children playing, and in the silent reverence with which people pass the school playground that suggests the entire community was transformed by the experience of losing and finding one of their most precious children. The deepest lesson of Emma's story can be found not just in the happy ending of her reunion with family, but in the way her experience taught an entire community about the complex nature of love, protection, and family. She demonstrated that sometimes the most difficult circumstances can reveal the extraordinary strength of the human spirit, and that even in the most painful separations, love can find ways to keep connections alive until it's safe to reunite again. And so in the small town of Cedar Valley, where mountains embrace clouds and where every story spreads from heart to heart like the scent of pines in the afternoon breeze, The story of Emma and Honey continues to inspire families to believe in the power of unconditional love, to treasure every moment of togetherness, and to understand that even when we can't see the way back home, love is always working behind the scenes, keeping our most precious secrets until the perfect moment to reveal them to the world. And every night when Emma hugs Honey before sleeping, she whispers a silent thank you to the teddy bear who kept her secret so faithfully, who served as a bridge between two lives, and who proved that some loves are strong enough to survive any separation, no matter how long or difficult it might be. The secret Honey kept wasn't just a recorded message or a folded note. It was proof that true love always finds a way back home, and that sometimes the most powerful guardians of our most precious hopes come in the form of a simple brown teddy bear, faded by love and marked by the tears and smiles of a child who was never really lost, just temporarily protected until it was safe to return to the arms that always loved her.